The big guy barged straight into the girls' restroom. But the schoolgirls didn't bat an eye, because lately Dong wasn't there to flirt or fool around. He was there to find the hidden camera in the girls' restroom. When he checked the footage, he discovered the person who'd installed the camera was the school's art teacher. Dong immediately went to confront him. Inside the room, though, he heard a woman crying. That was unbearable. Dong slammed the wooden door hard. "You bastard. Come out." Dong is the national Sanda, Chinese kickboxing, champion. After refusing to take a fixed fight with his previous boss, one blow cost him not only his title, but his livelihood. Left without options, he became a physical education teacher at a middle school. All that muscle made the teachers too intimidated to say a word. He soon realized that not only were the teachers indifferent, the students disliked him intensely too. "Oh my God, don't just barge in like that." At first he assumed the kids were just being naughty, but the moment they saw the handsome teacher, their faces changed immediately. Dong was speechless, but you can't blame them. On paper he was a PE teacher, but in truth the school hired him to collect debts. They used his intimidating frame to scare students who refused to pay fees. But with these scrawny middle schoolers, he was overqualified for the job. "I'll handle this myself." Dong planned to go after the student who owed the most, Yojin. But she didn't treat him like a threat at all. She just walked away when he tried to lay down the law. One day Dong went to the restroom and accidentally saw Yojin skipping class. He followed her. To his surprise, she went into a nightclub. Dong barged in after her. He found Yojin being harassed. Dong snapped. He shoved aside the thugs blocking the way and pulled Yojin free. "Who's messing with her?" Goosebumps. Don't let appearances fool you. Those students might not know value, but these hired thugs were professionals. Looking at Dong's stance, they knew he wasn't someone to mess with. "I'll shut up. Don't make me deal with you." So Dong swaggered Yojin out of the club. From Yojin's mouth, he learned why she'd been there. Her close childhood friend Laxi had been missing for a month. They'd grown up together in the countryside, carefree. But Laxi's parents had died in a car accident, leaving only his grandmother. To help support the household, Laxi worked at that nightclub on the side. 1 month earlier, the night he last came to work, he never came home again. That night, Dong drove Yojin home. He promised to help search for Laxi, but told her she should never go into places like that again. Yojin thought his promise was one of those grown-up empty reassurances. Annoyed, she got off at an intersection. A few steps later she was attacked by a man dressed in black. Driving home, Dong found her phone left in his car. He turned back to return it and managed to save her, stunned and knocked out. The police only made a cursory record and tried to close the case. Dong didn't trust the sloshed police captain, so he contacted a former pupil from his fighting days. Because a mayoral election was underway, everyone wanted scandals handled quietly. That was the real reason no one paid attention to Laxi's disappearance. Unclear line and source about, because you are foreign. The text is garbled here. The next day Dong arrived at school and found someone smoking in the restroom. He burst in angrily, but the girls denied it. Looking for the cigarette, he searched each stall and instead found a hidden camera. He told the disciplinary director, who told him to mind his own business. Dong had no choice but to investigate alone. This line and what follows are part of the same episode. Dong is furious and smashes the door. The text includes a boast. "This is the toughest Korean I've seen." The wooden door went with his fist. "You bastard." Once the art teacher was made to kneel, Dong began questioning him about the restroom camera and what he had done to Laxi. The art teacher tried to lie, but Laxi's phone, hidden in a corner, betrayed him. Dong said, "If you don't confess honestly, don't expect to walk out of this door alive." Dong was the kind of man who could do it. The art teacher had no choice but to confess. He said that after contacting Laxi that night, he did go to pick him up. But Laxi answered a phone call halfway through and said he could go home on his own, no need to follow. When the teacher returned because he felt uneasy, Laxi was gone. He only found Laxi's phone in an abandoned restroom. Dong naturally didn't believe him. He dragged the teacher to the police. But it was the same unreliable captain again. The captain released the art teacher. The next day, the principal summoned Dong to the office and fired him for meddling. Meanwhile, Yojin continued to stubbornly post missing person flyers. Then the worst news arrived. A body was found under a bridge. It was Laxi, who'd gone missing days ago. Seeing her childhood friend dumped in the wilderness, Yojin cried herself hoarse. Dong didn't know how to comfort her. He just held her tight. Teachers' indifference, the school's perfunctory response, even the police turned a blind eye. They'd all delayed any chance to save Laxi. A girl in the spring of her life had become a corpse. Dong was furious, thinking, if you won't do it, I will. He returned to that nightclub. He found the shift manager who'd last worked with Laxi, Miss Susie. Isu, stop pretending you don't know me. From the shift manager's account we learned, Laxi had come to the nightclub because he had no choice. He needed money to treat his grandmother. He worked at the club to cover medical bills. That night happened to be a gathering of local tycoons and officials. As the one there to make payments, Laxi suddenly got a message that his grandmother's condition had flared up. He wanted to go back and take her to the hospital. He recognized one of the politicians there as the school's principal, Lao Tiao. Please help me, boss. I'm actually a high school student. My grandmother is ill. Can I go now? As the principal hesitated, a high-ranking official stepped forward. He took a fancy to Laxi. Old Pooh immediately caught on. You really are resourceful. What will happen if you drag our school into this? Because we have the youngest students here. We'll be embarrassed at school. I'll make sure the speaker is interrupted. Before he could finish, a scream rang out from the villa. When Old Pooh rushed to the room, the official was already dead. Laxi was nowhere to be found. Owner Yi of the nightclub flew into a rage. He couldn't afford to offend those officials. So he threatened Laxi's grandmother's life to force Laxi to reveal his whereabouts. Their conversation was overheard by the nightclub owner's henchman, who immediately phoned him. He hurried back with his men. A big fight broke out. Don't mess with this man unless you want trouble. Because a student was harmed, Dong swore he'd personally make the perpetrators pay. He went straight to the nightclub where Laxi had worked and found the owner. Hey, wait. Are you the boss? Everyone's here. The thug Xiao Semida grabbed Dong by the collar as he approached. He was shoved down. Now the Semida gang wasn't having it. Then someone struck with a club. You're a Sonda champion? They mocked. Today we'll beat you to pieces. Dong was furious. He'd never taken such a beating before. He answered with a solid punch. Then he put on a show. Seeing their men knocked out, the nightclub owner couldn't stay seated. He grabbed a foot-filing knife and rushed in. But that pampered little body was no match for Dong. Under Dong's questioning, the nightclub owner reluctantly told the truth. When the owner arrived that night, he had not seen Laxi. But he did see a man in black in a restroom stall who had already knocked Laxi unconscious. That man in black was none other than the school's art teacher, who was also Principal Pooh's son. The owner dared not act on his own. He immediately called the principal. The principal was enraged at his irresponsible son. With your status, what couldn't you get? Why pull stunts like this? In his anger, he slapped his son hard. After disciplining his son, Old Pooh discovered Laxi was still alive. But Laxi knew all of his ugly secrets. If those were spread, Pooh's campaign for mayor would be destroyed. So he decided there was no turning back. He picked up a plastic bag and suffocated Laxi to death. Once Dong learned the whole truth, he realized the art teacher was the ultimate pervert. He had long taken pleasure in kidnapping girls. And Principal Pooh was his protection behind the scenes. As expected, Yojin once again fell into the predator's clutches. He took Yojin to a secret base in the countryside. Pooh Renming thoroughly enjoyed this cat-and-mouse game. He smashed all the goblets hanging from the ceiling to the floor. Yojin cowered under the table, trembling. The more terrified she became, the more excited Pooh Renming was. He deliberately stepped on the broken glass and edged toward Yojin. Come out now, Yuji. Dong heard Yojin scream. He saw Yojin lying on the ground, barely alive. Dong was at a loss. A shard of glass had deeply pierced Yojin's neck. In the ensuing panic, Pooh Renming quietly picked up a pair of scissors and drove them hard into Dong's body. Dong completely lost his temper. He wrenched the scissors from his side and struck back with furious blows. Pooh Renming, beaten and cowering, begged for mercy. Dong didn't want to kill anyone, so he stopped and rushed to tend to Yojin. But the pretty-faced scoundrel didn't change his nature. He grabbed a plate from the table and swung it at Dong. Pooh Renming finally still, Dong hurriedly grabbed Yojin and sped to the hospital. Atmospheric filler lines. Stand there. Wait a bit. Don't fall asleep. Compared to the two injured, on the other side, Principal Pooh was basking in triumph. He had been elected mayor by an overwhelming margin. In the end, Yojin was rushed into intensive care. Dong watched the triumphant principal on television and felt sick. Why do bad people always seem to do so well? The angrier he got, the more he drove, right into the principal's car. He forced the car to pull over. The henchman tried to intervene, but facing the enraged Dong, another punch would be wasteful. The principal was terrified. Seeing this beast Dong show no mercy, a punch shattered the window glass. Immediately sirens wailed in the distance. Dong knew the day had finally come. In the end, both the big and small culprits were punished by the law. Yojin woke from the coma. She saw the small gift Dong had brought her.